that my mother had born to her equals a gun. What is it, Trey?
Yo, man, that's the formula.
Yo.
What
Formula
up?
episode 3. Got a
Episode
routine going
3.
now. What's going on?
Bro, a lot has happened,
Yeah,
obviously.
we have a lot to get into. I know we're probably going to pick up where we left off about your interview process, but to kind of keep the consistency, do you want to start with our weekend recap? Do you remember what you did this past weekend, even?
I know I had to make the accounts, right? And I
Yeah.
did that. We did that. We put out the first 2 episodes now. Um, I think that's all I had to do, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't just have to be from like a podcast perspective. Like, what did you
Oh,
and Steph
but
do?
what did
Like,
I do? What did I do? Yeah. Okay. Um, Last weekend, Steph and I, what did we do? Friday, she had her first show for her new company that she's working for, which was like a African art show. So basically, it was this lady who's curating af artists from Africa or now immigrants in America that are from Africa. She hosted the show at My Modern Oasis, where Steph works at, which was really cool. It was like a panel, and they just talked about the influences that they have and, where the rooms that they're in currently. Like the lady that's the curator is a lawyer. So it's interesting getting her perspective and how she got into the arts and how she looks at art and like in her day-to-day life too. And then Ingrid was the artist that was from Haiti, and she had like these really cool candles. As well. So it was pretty dope. Oh, and we after that went to I think it was a Japanese bar, and they had like traditional Japanese food that would be at a bar,
yeah,
which was dope, like super dope. Food was amazing. I had ox tongue for the first time, which I've been wanting to try because that's big in Steph's culture as well. But we actually sang karaoke. I got Steph to sing karaoke, and we were just talking about that,
oh yeah,
which was totally random. I actually sang Follow Me, Uncle Cracker, which I did not bring up because
it's a
someone
good
stole
pick.
my song.
It's a
Someone
solid pick.
stole
Oh, someone else sang your. What was your song again?
Fast Car.
Fast Car. Yeah, it's a classic.
Yeah, yeah. And Steph sang Like a Virgin. So proud of her for doing that. That's not like her to do.
Madonna.
Yeah. And then Saturday, just kind of hung out, did some work, and then at night we had one of Steph's friends' birthdays. So how about you?
Dude, I honestly can't. I'm blanking on what I did Friday and Saturday. Cause Sunday was kind of the big day, I guess, this weekend. Caroline and I had our 1 year, which we talked about a bit,
Congratulations.
which was great. We kind of uh went back down on what we did on our first date, which was we walked around Harriet. We got
Nice.
a restaurant that was in the area and like brought it to the park, which was dope. But
Uh,
in the morning, we went to Paisley Park, which did you ever do that tour when you lived in Minneapolis?
no, that's Prince's house, right?
Yeah, it's Prince's like house, his estate, and it's kind of been transformed into a museum. I've done the tour one other time with my mom, and it's crazy. Like next time you're in town, I definitely recommend it. I've always been a big Prince fan, so it's always super cool for me to see. And obviously, the tour guides each have their own individual stories, but there's just a ambiance in that space that's so dope. And it mostly feels genuine. I think when I first went through it, I was like, I don't know, it would feel odd to go through touring the space that he lived in that they're seemingly coming up on now that he's passed. But from everything I've heard, and I mean, maybe there's a little bias because it's the people that are employed there, but from even before he'd passed, I'd heard stories on how it was his goal to transition it into a museum, and a lot of the work that was done was while he was still alive.
Hmm.
So, from
Oh,
what they
interesting. I
say,
didn't realize that.
yeah, like when he was building it up, everything, all the architecture, each room, all like the carpeting, the walls, the structures in the whole building are intentionally built by him. And from what they say, nothing's changed. Like they haven't changed any architecture or anything for sure, but it all was done by him, and there were certain rooms that were already being transitioned to represent specific albums and specific moments in his life and all these little things that he wanted to live on after he was gone. And what I think that's cool about it too, as much as it is a space for people to do tours and things, it's still very much an active place. Like they still do shows there. They have a cafe that's in there that they host events at, and there's a lot of stuff that they do just to honor him, but also just to kind of like keep the spirit of the place. So it was Caroline's first time going there, and yeah, like I said, I'm just a big Prince fan, so
Yeah,
it's dope, and I definitely recommend it.
it's super interesting because like the only real thing I know about the museum side of things is what like Jay-Z says in his song. Um, what did he say? Like land whoever his agent was or whatever, whoever runs the state now, said like Prince sat him down, told him his wishes. All you see is green in them purple eyes or something like that.
Yeah, I
Uh,
do remember that. I get what do you like infer that that means? Oh
well,
yeah,
I don't know what
I
the
sat
whole
down with
meaning
Prince
is.
eye to eye. That's
Yeah,
from
it's
yeah,
on the
444. I don't remember
444
what
album.
song. Yeah.
But because I sat down with well, my old lawyer for skin tones was the guy that worked on that case for Rock Nation for Prince. So I remember like asking him about it.
Oh yeah, Prince lashes out, or Jay-Z lashes out at Prince estate on 444 song caught their eyes. Yeah, because I think that there was I don't think that has to do with that though. I think that's about how because his family, yeah. Because his family was like battling over what happened to his music and stuff after he died.
Oh,
So
that's what it
that's
was.
talking about like his estate. Yeah, it's this guy to slay the face. You think he wanted the masters with his masters. I'm surprised you ain't auction off the casket.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's crazy because I do remember that. I remember because he has just like these vaults of music, and the people who are like true to his musicianship and things, I think weren't fucking with like putting it out, but the people that wanted to profit off of it, I think he had some siblings and stuff that there was a battle for it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
Also,
I don't think they meant his estate by
oh,
that
gotcha.
specifically. They meant like the people in his camp after he'd passed.
Gotcha. The other thing, the only thing I really know about Prince, like close to him, was you remember the gaffer that was on, or the guy that brought all the lighting equipment for,
Yeah. What
he
was it,
was,
Jim or something?
yeah, he
Yeah.
was like Prince's right-hand man when it came to like taking care of his estate and then also doing like lighting. Like he had the piano from Purple Rain sitting in a barn, like just deteriorating. Like it was so sad that that's where it was and like that's the condition he had it in because yeah, it was from like the movie and all that. He had it. And then he had like all these carpets that Prince just like gave him. So he had him laying down on like barns and stuff and I was like, dude, that's so
Nuts.
crazy. But like you walked around this guy's place, he had four barns full of just lighting equipment and all this stuff and I was just like,
He
damn.
seemed like a
That
cool guy.
he was so cool.
Our
He said
tour
he,
guide in this last tour was super dope too. She was this just like OG lady that was like telling all these stories about going to shows and coming to Paisley Park back in the day. And I was asking her so many questions because a lot of the people there were just super fans. And something that Caroline and I were talking about on the way, it's like he passed in 2016. So in
yeah,
my
I
head, I was
remember.
like,
We were freshmen in college.
yeah, yeah. And I remember it like it was yesterday. But I always was thinking, do they still pack out these tours? Like it's not like it's a new,
Yeah.
it's a new attraction. I feel like anyone who would have wanted to see it has gone by now. But I didn't think
Yeah.
about people coming from out of town, and obviously in my case, I was just going to see it, and it was Caroline's first time. But she had so many stories, and I was asking her about his label and like all these little about events that were coming up, and it would be dope to just go there and chop it up with those people because I'm
Yeah.
sure they have sick connections.
Oh, for sure. I think that'd be cool to go to. I know, and then the other parts that I know is from FEMA, but because like in his, well, I don't know, that's a whole different story. I don't even know
Yeah.
enough to get into it, but just like what their family, how they're connected to him and like the one brother of them. But anyways, I remember that gym guy saying he was like, "Yeah, I was on my way to actually do some work on the house, and then I heard it on the radio, and I like called somebody to see if it was real, and he's like, "Yeah, I just had to turn around. They just told me not to come." I think he was doing
It's
like,
nuts.
I think it was like snow removal or something. But anyways, totally not.
Yeah, that was wild. But anyway, we did that on Sunday morning. We went to her dad's during the day, and he has like a beautiful place in Alexandria that's on the water and super spacious. And every
Yeah.
time I go there, I'm like, damn, this is what I want to have someday, some little spot to get away from the city. But that was my Sunday, and then just kind of dove back into the week. I know at the end of last week, I just was getting back from my vacation, and this is one of the hardest I think it's ever hit me coming back from a vacation and just getting dumped on. Like I had the most blissful, just kicking my feet up vacation, which it felt great to do. And I don't think we
Yeah.
got into this a ton last week either, but I come Wednesday, once I got back that next day, there just was a laundry list of stuff for me to catch up on and things I'm still kind of dealing with into this week. It's what is it, Wednesday today? And
Hmm.
yeah, I'm going to Florida again next week. I don't know if you knew that,
Yeah, I
but
knew you were leaving at the end of the week. I didn't know when.
yeah. So we'll probably have to record this next episode while I'm there. So we'll do probably the same thing we did last time, but now just kind of trying to push everything through in this week in between and also just been getting some dope opportunities. So it's been busy, but it's been good too. I got a couple new clients in the mix I have to present to a VP of a company which I won't name on pod today, but that I'm looking forward to. I'm getting some good reps in with that stuff, so I'm excited.
That's super dope. How have you started to prepare for that? Like, what do you even do to get ready for a situation like that?
Yeah, what's really dope, I know we've talked a bit about mentorships that we've received and just like people that we've worked with and that you've worked with that kind of get us in the mix with some of this stuff. But something that I'm learning now is I've just been so in the trenches doing the work for the last 5 or 6 years that I haven't really got the reps in of explaining how I do the work. I know we talked a little bit about that because I tend to get too technically in the weeds,
Yeah.
but not even just with speaking, with documentation, with slide decks, with all that kind of stuff, just having a digestible way to quantify the stuff that I'm doing and then what it actually does for the clients. So I've done a little bit of that on my own. It's been kind of a all over the place process so far with my clients, but with some of the other projects that I work on and clients that I'm getting from some of these mentors of mine and business partners, with Graham specifically, like I'm fine talking about him openly. I think we'll probably have him on the podcast someday because super smart dude. Learned so much from that dude. Like
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
lot to thank for him for where I'm at, but he has sort of just thrown me to the wolves, but also has really trusted my abilities, which has been great. I always compare him to other leaders that I've had that, want things done a certain way and which I can appreciate, but there's not a ton of leeway for my own interpretation and my own, tweaks and changes to processes. So in Graham's case, there's a big thing in the SEO world that starts each of these projects, and that's SEO audits, which we've talked about. And everyone does audits a different way. Everyone has a different depthness of the audits that they do,
Hmm.
but there's really levels to this shit. Like most agencies, a lot of people that even run SEO agencies, audits that they do are pretty surface level, and the stuff that they find is mostly just from tools or crawlers that are spitting information out that they're in turn telling to the client that actually don't really move the needle that much for the growth that they're trying to gain. um And in this case, Graham does like the most in-depth audits out of anyone I know, and he knows this process, you know, more than anyone that I know. And for this client specifically, so this will be the second kind of client that I'm taking on full time with him, and he already did the audit. And what I'm helping him with is there's like a kind of a three-step process. So he has just like his own documentation for all of the notes that he takes as he's doing the audit. He has a slides deck that has the top 10 priority items of his findings from the audit. And then he has a top 20 list that includes 20 priority items that they could work into if they um, surpass those 10 items. And what he's having me do in this case is he already has the notes for all the items that he's found, but he's having me work backwards to pull his items into the slide deck, explain what the problem is, explain what the opportunity is, and then provide a visual for the client to like visually understand what the issue is. And that's been super helpful for me because I'm kind of getting to work backwards and he's already found the issues and I'm having to now translate those issues into something that the client can digest. So, to make a long story short, he's kind of giving me the process inside out. So, he's already kind of done the legwork and I'm just working through explaining to the client what the problems and opportunities are. So in this case, he's done the stuff. I'm coming in and just presenting on it. So that's the part of the process that I'm still learning about. So what better way to do it than just kind of throw me into it? So from there, we have a couple other clients in the works that I'm going to get to do the process A to Z now. So I'll get to take what I already know plus what I've done through this process and get to do this the full process A to Z. So
So
it's been sick.
when you guys, obviously you have this presentation, he's throwing you out to do it. Are you guys doing like run throughs together just to make sure that he feels comfortable or just to give you feedback as well?
I mean, we've kind of just been going back and forth. He's been giving me feedback for sure, like amazing feedback. That's been the best thing is he always has me take a stab at it. He's like, I trust you, like you'll do great. It's gonna be fine. And in this case with the presentation, I was pulling all of his notes out and adding them into each of the slides, finding a visual that's applicable to the problems, sent it back for his feedback, and he kind of said, well, this is what I actually meant by this issue. Here's how we can tweak this. And then we kind of just go back and forth until it's a finished product. The other thing that is still a bit of a learning curve for me is kind of code switching to wear the hat, I guess, for his agency in a sense, because I mean, you know from the skin tones days and whatever else, like how important decks are in presentations to clients. And so often, especially in some of my corporate gigs, there's, you know, 1,000 slides with just a bunch of brain dump on it, with a bunch of
Yeah,
information
yeah.
that the people who are reading it can't digest. And it's been a conflict for me in my full-time roles because I can see the deer in the headlights from the people that are getting presented to. I think there's almost like an ego thing involved sometimes when people make decks because they're like, I did all this work. I want to make sure that everything I'm doing
Just notice.
and everything that I know is depicted on these slides. But what I've learned from Graham is, you know, we're on the same team as the client. We want to give them as much information as they want to know. And anything past that, I think, is
Yeah.
excess.
I
So,
always, that reminds me of like with calls and stuff. So one thing in sales is that they always push is talk time. And I think I'm a firm believer in is as soon as you have their attention and you hit on the thing that they care about, just shut the hell up and get out of the way. Like so many people ruin their chances by over explaining and they just need to know what they want to hear. And once you have them, just move out of the way and even like end the call. Like I've had discovery calls or um like actual 30-minute meetings scheduled where I end them in 15 minutes because we already covered all the things they want to cover. And now we need to go to the next step so we don't lose their interest. Because the more you talk, the more you can get them to be like, yeah, you're not what I need now
Yeah. Well, and how common is it for people to try to oversell because they're overcompensating,
all
right?
the time. I mean, you think of cold calls specifically, like again, they push talk time for that. So they're like, oh, this guy's having a great conversation with me. I've already talked to him for 5 minutes and he's wants to have a meeting with me. Why don't I talk to him longer and extract more information? Well, you got to remember this person is super busy. And as long as you can satisfy their needs and you, they already told you, like, yeah, I'm willing to go meet with you, do all that other extra stuff in the meeting where they've actually made time for you. But so many people are like, oh, they try to sell on the first call or they try to, extract so much. And then next thing you know, they're like, you know what I said about that meeting before? Let's not do it. Or they just don't show up.
That's such a good call out too, because I think it's so easy to get in your head when you're having those conversations because you're trying so hard to interpret what they're feeling based on what you're saying. And that can be good if they're enjoying what you're saying, but then it also might, you might be shooting yourself in the foot by saying too much. So it's good to have that recognition and recognize sometimes that less is
Yeah,
more.
exactly. And people are busy. Like, that's the main thing to always remember, especially if you're cold calling them. You're breaking up their day. So the longer you take, the worse it gets. I mean, like even when I call people that I care about, like, or if I'm calling you or my family, like, there's so many times I'm like, all right, I know I need to call Casey, but I'm doing this thing right now. Like, I need to finish this thing. So if you call them and they answer, you're breaking up whatever they're doing at that moment. And the longer it takes, the more they're like, okay, I don't like you anymore. Like, get off the phone.
Dude, that's been something that's been prevalent in my life, and not even just with calls, but with everything that I'm doing. It's so easy for my ADHD to prevent me from getting anything done because I'm trying so hard to
Yeah,
multitask. Bounce to this, bounce to this. Like the second I open this computer, if I have a tab open that has a notification, it's so easy for me to open that notification and go down that rabbit hole and forget about what I was doing and then let that happen 10 more times.
exactly.
So, similar to the call thing, like you'd mentioned, I've been trying to do a better job at just dialing in on what I'm dialed in on, stay true to my priority list, and once this item's checked off, then I can move to this item and actually gradually work through things. It's crazy how much more productive I am when I focus on one thing at a time instead of trying to do everything at
The
once.
key, man.
Because yeah, it's tough. It's easier said than
Oh, for
done.
sure. No, I've been trying to focus more on that too, especially like in the world that I'm in. There's always stuff hitting the fan. So it's like, all right, let me just do this real quick. But half the time you that can wait, especially if someone's emailing you. If it's an email, it can wait. The rule with that is you get 24 hours to respond. But if they call you, oh, then you better deal with it right away because that means it's a real problem. Text is like do it within a couple hours, but if they're calling you, just get it done.
So, what I'm itching to hear about, you had your third interview today. I know we kind of wanted to do a continuation of what we talked about last time. Third and I believe final round. I guess I don't know what's the status with how today went and what to expect moving
Yeah,
forward.
so let me just break down how the day went first, and then I'll tell you
Yeah,
the
yeah,
results
for
of it.
sure. I knew there was probably there's a long list of what happened today because I texted you bright and early and didn't hear back
Yeah,
until the interview just happened. So
yeah.
like you probably had a whole routine before you could get into it.
So obviously, I took today off and yesterday. I just wanted to make sure I was feeling good. Was a big opportunity for me, so I just wanted to make sure I did all the things to make sure I felt good and make sure I got enough sleep because I'm a chronic no sleep team. Um, so woke up later than I expected and got to got ready, just reviewed my notes, reviewed on the way there who was actually interviewing me, just what a couple things to talk about, like one of the ladies had worked at the same company as my mom and dad and like my grandparents. So I just had one highlighting. I knew at one point when I could talk to that, and then knew like again where someone else went to college and one of my friends who went there, just something to relate on. But what happened is I got to the interview. They said be there 15 minutes early. Showed up 15 minutes early. Start right away. I noticed that there's other people interviewing at the same time. So I'm like, seems like you guys are all probably here for an interview just to like calm my nerves a little bit and talk to somebody. And I could tell this one guy was really nervous. So I talked with him for a minute and that made me, this is sounds bad, but feel better because I was just like, okay,
I'm gonna be better than
he's
him.
nervous. Like you could tell he was nervous because one, he had like all his stuff so close to him, like his briefcase was on his feet. He needed it like
Mm,
he was trying like to, you know, how they say like when you're anxious and stuff, you have to like press things against you or like you need a hug. He was trying to do
yeah.
that with his stuff. And so I just sat and talked to him for a while, kind of calmed him down. And I made him feel, I told him nice things too to make him feel better. Like, oh, you don't seem nervous, but obviously I knew he was.
Wait, hold on too. Before you get into like actually getting into the
Yeah.
room, I know we talked about you're meeting with some people for your
Yeah.
preparation. You're waiting on like an email, it sounded like, for them to tell you when the interview was.
Yeah.
Like what kind of led up to
Yeah.
that stuff?
So I had two friends that pretty recently got hired, so I just talked to them about the process more and like what to expect in the third interview. But yeah, they hadn't sent me the confirmation. They told me like, all right, your time's going to be at 1:15 on Wednesday, but we'll send you another email to confirm who it's with and this stuff. So hadn't gotten that confirmation email, emailed the lady twice who was supposed to schedule it. Then I finally called her and I'm like, what's going on? No response, left her a voicemail. And then I emailed the recruiter that I had from the second interview and was like, hey, what? Uh, I'm getting a little worried. Like I took off for work and I haven't heard anything back yet. She didn't respond, but within like 2 minutes, I had an email from the third recruiter that was scheduling everything, just saying like, okay, we'll have everything to you by the end of day. And then I got it sent to me. So like last night I found out who was actually interviewing me. So a lot later than what I would have liked. But yeah, so it all worked out. But going back to sitting in the lobby. So I get there early. Next thing you know, like this guy had an interview at the same time as me. He gets taken upstairs. I'm like, okay. And this is already like 118, we'll say, that he got brought up. I'm sitting there, I'm like, all right, did they forget about me? Like, what's going on? It's 120. Next thing you know, it's 125. It's 130. It's 140, 145. I'm like, yo, they forgot about me. This is crazy. Like they either they're making me sweat on purpose or they forgot about me. Whole time I'm just like trying to make sure I do good body language to show that I'm comfortable and like to tell myself that I'm comfortable. So leaning back in the chair, crossing my leg over the top, like in a relaxed state. All of a sudden, I see this lady come down and I realize like this wasn't the person who was supposed to walk me around to start, but this was the person who was interviewing me actually. And she's like, oh my
Mm.
gosh, the guy that was supposed to come get you, he grabbed the wrong person. They brought him into our interview and he like said his name and I thought it was wrong, but I didn't really know. And then the next interviewer got on and she was like, um, we're supposed to be interviewing a Trent, not a Grant. And then so they had to bring that guy to a different room and then she came and got me and like they just brought me right into the interview room and it was funny, but
Dude, that's insane.
yeah, it was crazy. So it worked out, but it was a crazy start for sure.
So for the actual process, now that you are in the room, who are you meeting with? What were the questions like? How was it in comparison to the first and second interview? How do you feel it
Yeah.
went?
So there was one lady in the room with me who was a sales manager, and then another sales manager who was actually lives in Pittsburgh, but she was online. So um the lady in the room with me was like pretty tough. She just like stared at me and like didn't really react to a lot of stuff. I got her to smile a couple times and laugh, and the lady that was on screen, I kept seeing her reactions like at stuff. So I kind of broke down my why to you when we talked, and I almost cried in it when I was like talking about it. And
I almost cried listening to you tell it to me.
and it was I saw a reaction from her at that point, and she also, like I mentioned, worked for a little bit at Procter and Gamble where my parents work. So I just touched on that in my why, like, I know you probably understand what that life's like. And she's like, "Oh yeah, your parents must work in the Green Bay factory." I was like, "Yeah." So, um, but honestly, I was prepared, but I didn't wasn't ready for all the questions they asked me. It was kind of a blur. Like they're just firing questions at you. And like I said, the lady in there was throwing me off because she was just not reacting to anything. And I like didn't know really how to pick my spots. And then I realized halfway through that I wasn't doing my proper active listening of like making sure I heard the question correctly, expanding on it to make sure that I'm going to answer it correctly, and then answering. So I started to do that probably like three questions in, and at times I felt like I was rambling. I felt uncomfortable. I was surprised they didn't ask me more about like the deals that I've done. I highlighted some of them, but I talked more about like the philosophies that I have on sales. And especially, I felt like I was repeating myself so much because I kept saying like, I'm not scared to ask a question. Like I will go to anybody. Even I brought up how I asked the CEO out to lunch and he took me out to lunch. And the lady in the room didn't even react at all. I was like, "What? This is crazy." Like you're not impressed by anything.
I'm having a hard time picturing like the vibe. So like there was a lady sitting here and then there was just a screen and then she was also in the conversation and they were like both asking questions and
Yeah,
reacting
so imagine like you have like a long table, like it would be like an oval shaped table, but imagine that cut in half. And then you have a big flat screen TV sitting right there with a big sound bar on the top and camera, like on top of you basically. And there's
in like a conference
yeah, in
room
a
kind of
corner
thing.
conference room
Okay.
overlooking the river at Chicago. And yeah, lady is straight across from me. And then I have the lady on the screen to my right. And like I said, there's four seats in there. The TV is basically on top of you, and like you can see a big ass thing of yourself right there, and this lady blown up on the screen.
Okay. So in the grand scheme of like the team structure, who would they have been if or when you do get the
Yeah,
job?
so one was a sales manager of a team of the role I was gonna do. From what it sounded like when I looked at her LinkedIn, the lady on the screen was that lady's boss. But it sounds like she's been
Okay.
doing this role for I think 7 years or 6 years or something. I don't know. She's been doing it for quite a while. She, um, but based on leaving the conversation, I think she's a sales manager as well. I think she's just a more tenured manager. Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious too about the why. So we had a call and you kind of walked me through the why. Was it kind of the same thing that you walked me through? Did you make any tweaks between when we talked and when you actually presented it? Or,
Yeah. Do you want me to run through it? I can just tell you exactly what I said, or
I mean, it's up to you. If you want to run through it, you can. I'm just
yeah.
hit at least in the main talking points.
Yeah, so I mean, first off was just saying what role I was in. Second, or like what role I was applying for. Second point was to talk about the role I'm currently in and the sales process that it entails. So I simplified that after talking with you, just like putting it to cradle to grave sales, which means like you're doing the full sales cycle and then managing the account. Um, and then highlighted like two of the main things that I try to do. Um, and then the third was talking about myself, just some fun facts. So I talked about how I'm into espresso. I make a mean banana bread. And then third was how I'm curious, and like that's led me to read 42 books last year. And then talking about how now I've started to, before I was just reading because I thought you would learn a skill when you read the book, but now I'm actually taking time to take notes on the book and putting myself in situations and meditating on the scenarios in the book to turn them into skills, actually. Um, so I highlighted that. And then I talked about how the why section was actually really challenging me. So I did what I do, and I read Mark, the CEO's book called Trailblazer, and highlighted like how it made sense to me, how he talked about his dad, um, how his dad had a clothing company that he would spend so much time working on it and it took away from their family, but he noticed that the main thing he did with that was always build trust, and trust was so huge to him. And then talking about his grandfather, who was a lawyer and would bring him to different locations in San Francisco and talk about how this would make the world a better place. And then I brought that back to my parents, and I was like, it made me um, think deeply about why that is. And I said, like, my parents and my family come from a long line of factory workers. And I talked about how my mom, when she started real estate, she was working constantly, get up before everyone, go to bed after everyone. It was right during like the time of the recession. So she was working an insane amount and just trying to show up every day. And um, that my parents also made me when I joined a sport or a club, they made me show up every single day to it. They would never let me quit anything. And how that's made me be somebody that shows up and puts in the work and will do whatever I think it's going to take, because if I set my mind to something, I'm going to do it and not just quit and give up. And like I highlighted it back to, especially at Schneider, we're in a freight recession. We have been for the last 3 years, and talking about um, just like how I showed up when I first got there. And then I also mentioned the part of how sales chose me, how someone that I used to work with told me that I should not talk to clients and that I had to prove to myself that that wasn't true. And I'm glad that you mentioned that. I should add that piece after talking with you. But the lady right away goes, "Well, why do you think he said that?" And I was like, "Well, that's a great question because I haven't really thought about it, but I think it has to do because we were young, and we're in the age of where you can ghost people, and I'm totally okay with having the uncomfortable conversation and going to the conflict. And I think that's what the difference was at that time. He was not comfortable with that, and I wanted to do those things. So,
I mean, I know that's just the Spark Notes, bro, but like I can't imagine that someone came with that
yeah.
self-aware of a why. I think that even just your viewpoint on stuff in your upbringing and like why you're doing the things that you're
Yeah.
doing is so
Yeah.
unique. I'm not saying that that's what they need out of whoever they're hiring. I think that that's great for you as a person. Hopefully, they recognize
Hmm.
that that would be so good for that
Yeah.
role. But I, I don't know. I think that I imagine that you crushed
Yeah.
it,
I just
and
tried to be vulnerable. And like, I think that's the other thing the one manager especially noticed, because I kept seeing her go, "Oh," was just like when I was talking about my approaches on calls and like why I think I'm a good cold caller and why I'm making certain decisions, you could tell it was super methodical and that it was planned out. And I knew why I was asking certain questions to get a reaction and how to play chess with them. And I think she saw that. Um, but yeah, walking out of we like ran out of time because I was asking so many questions, which should not surprise anybody.
yeah.
But yeah, so I walked downstairs and I was like to the lady at the front desk, I'm like, "Is there a bathroom down here? I gotta go so bad." And she's like, No, there's not. She's like, what were you doing in the building? I'm like, I just had an interview. I didn't want to ask her to wait for me at the bathroom while I'm walking out. And she's like, how bad do you got to go? I'm like, bad. So they bring me
That's
to the bathroom and I
hilarious.
walk out and I had a text from my recruiter as I walk out of the door. And she's like, you call me when you get a second. I'm like, oh shit. So I call her. I like walk next door and walk into a building and I call her. I'm like, what's up? She's like, how you doing? I'm like, I'm doing great. I hope I'm gonna stay doing great though. And she goes, yeah, well, I wanted to play it off a little bit, but you're gonna still feel good by the end of this. And I was like, she goes, it's a good thing that I texted you and I'm calling you this early. And I was like, is it? It's like, yeah, we're gonna extend you an offer. You'll have the offer in
Fuck
hand.
yeah, dude. Hell yeah, bro. What a build up.
Yeah, so I got the offer. I like got it right before I walked into this. Like, uh,
Dude, congratulations,
thank
man.
you.
That's so
Thank
awesome.
you. I'm so pumped. Like, you have no idea. I was just ecstatic. I was jumping up and down. It's crazy.
Bro, that is so wow. I did not know that that's where that was gonna end. I thought there was no way that you knew
Yeah,
already.
I didn't think I would either. I thought it'd be at least a week. And I texted my buddies that already had the job, and they're like, "Yo, you must have went crazy in that, because
Fuck yeah, dude. That's so sick. I was just that's what I'm saying. Like, there's no way that anyone is thinking about this stuff like you are. And like I can't you can't always assume that people will understand how that translates into just doing your position. Like I can imagine if I was in their seat, I'd be like, hey, why the fuck does this dude want to work for us? Like but dude, that's so awesome.
yeah,
I you put the work in and it's well deserved and you've been excited about it even since they initially reached out. So obviously the hard work pays off and I'm glad we're getting to document the journey of it in real
all
time.
glory to God, though, man. I There was a lot of signs that led me to them, and like I think I told you, I had some lady pray with me on the street, and she was like, "All of your work goals are gonna come true, and like all this different stuff is gonna happen for you like rapidly." And next thing I know, I get reached out to by them, which I mean, they're in a hiring phase right now, but also is not very normal. Like they have thousands of applicants every single day applying to this job specifically. So for them to reach out was crazy. And like the resume that I had on my LinkedIn was from like 2 years ago and honestly didn't even make sense. So I was just like, what the heck? And
Yeah, what do you think? How do you think that even happened? Did you ask about that? Did someone maybe throw your name in a hat that knew you might be a good fit, like the people that work there?
no, I think I asked the first recruiter and she was just like, "Oh yeah, I just saw your profile. I thought maybe be a good fit, like blah blah blah." I'm like, why? Oh,
Yeah. I mean, I suppose it's part of their job too, is to find people that could potentially be a good fit. And
yeah,
if, none of them work
yeah,
out, sometimes that's okay. But if they find someone like you in the mix, it's a gold
yeah.
mine.
Also, the one thing that like really raised their eyebrow too is I go, yeah, where I'm calling now, like we're in a freight recession. So there's 30 people that are doing the exact same job as me calling, especially at a good company, calling their director of supply chain and trying to get their business. So you have to be different. And she goes, well, and the lady was like, what? Both of them went, what? 30 people? It's like you're not going to be dealing with that much competition. There's always competition, but not like that. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was cool. It was fun though, like
Dude.
breaking down my process and like why I make decisions. And I think that's what, because the lady that was on the phone or like that called in, I'm gonna be on her team now. So she must have saw something.
Bro, it's like so bittersweet too, because I mean, you know this, but we've been talking about this stuff for how long ago did you start at Snyder? Schneider?
Uh, 16 months ago.
Like a year and a half
Yeah, almost a year
ish.
and a half.
It's just it feels so recently that we were talking about you going through this process to start with
Yeah,
Schneider to kick off this
yeah,
career and you figuring out what you have to give to that type of role, the effort that you have to put in to like get a position like that, you having your ups and downs within that position specifically and trying to decide if you want to leave, if you want to stay. So to hear it, you know, to hear you kind of go through the struggle of figuring all that stuff out, having someone reach out to you, you get to go through your steps as you do to prepare for it, feel confidently about your preparation, go into the interview, get to explain your process and how you think things through and why you are where you are, and to have it like work out is pretty exciting. I don't know, like I don't even know how to quantify it, bro. Like
Yeah,
it's
it
so
was
sick.
crazy. It was so crazy. And like I'm just so happy and thankful. But I have a lot of people to thank. Like the one that I kept referencing a lot was this guy named Thomas Sheeran, who is the bestseller.
Heck yeah.
He has taught me so much, and he actually got an offer from them as well at some point, but he had to turn it down because he was going to make way more money doing what he does now, which is totally fair. But that guy has like been the biggest supporter of me, and then a few other people like a guy named Dennis Cravens has taught me so much, and Austin Sylvester and Christians like Brian Ratter. Oh my gosh, all these guys are just insane sellers.
Get that Grammy speech going, bro. Get that. I'd like to thank the Academy. I'd
No,
like
but
to
literally
thank.
like, and my uncle Frank is, and my brother too. They both have sat down with me at times where I just like hated life and kind of walked me through it. Like early on, I was struggling so bad, and my uncle Frank, him and I went and got drinks and had fish together and talked through stuff. And he does medical sales. I think I mentioned him on one of the other ones, and the guy was is just so good at what he does. And he was just like, it's a dance. Like you got to learn the dance, and you got to understand the process, and you got to understand. He's like, you just got to ask questions. He's like, you're confident. You know how to ask questions. All you do all day with me is ask me questions. So why can't you do it there? But he made it way more simple. And now, like I was kind of mentioning, where you see things happening early on and you don't understand what they mean, and then you get to this point where they make sense to you. You know, a lot of that stuff has came together, and a lot of it, what he was telling me really early on. So
Well, I think that you're a direct representation of those connections in your network because, like you said, curious and naive, I think are the two
yeah,
things. And it's one thing to ask questions and to be curious, but to then put it into practice in your own life, which you talked about wanting to do more with the books that you're reading and things. But it doesn't always play out this way, and I think that you know that, and I
sure.
think that there's a lot of situations where you apply that same amount of effort and pressure to the things that you're going through and with hopes that they turn out right. But if you're really about it, if you really have like this end goal in mind, you're willing to kind of go through that rough patch to, have someone give you the green light. So it's just dope to be a part of that journey. I know we've talked about this stuff intermittently for a
Yeah.
few years now. So
Well, and honestly, I've also always wanted to just like go through the tough. I Something that I always used to pray about before I even knew how to pray was just like I want to go through all the struggles. Like I want it to be tough because I want to know how to go through tough times. And like I used to pick jobs that I knew I would hate because I knew I never would want to do them again. I knew it would like build mental toughness. So like I was a flagger on the road where you stand in the same spot. There was days I stood in the same spot for 18 days and or 18 hours, and I couldn't even like leave to pee. And you had to sit in your mind all day. So like, and then when you got in the truck, you had to deal with the guy next to you who was just like a high school kid talking about drama and all this stuff. And um, when it comes to sales, though, unbeknownst to me, when I got into the role, they were in the freight recession, so it was just like the worst time for somebody to get into it. But for me, it was the best time because you have to be so scrappy to do well, and I was struggling so bad for so long, and now like I'm starting to close really good deals, but I'm ready to move on and apply those things to a job where the market is a lot more open. Like the brand that I'm going to be representing is called MuleSoft too. So they help with like
Mm.
IT processing, and basically we're one of the only people in the market for it. It's like obviously there's other CRMs, but there's not going to be that much as much competition. So
What I was thinking about too, leading up to this call, is there was potential that we had all these conversations about your interviews in this process, and then you didn't get the job, and then we then have conversations about what the transition looks like, where we go from here, the value that you still place in Schneider, and kind of how you're gonna make the most out of that experience since you're still in it. But then the flip side, I was like, if he does get the job, we get to go through this journey
yeah,
together about you learning this new
yeah,
job, your onboarding process, these managers that you initially met in the interview process, and kind of like what that relationship turns into. So I'm stoked that we get to kind of keep living vicariously through that
yeah,
journey. Um, Obviously, you have like the biggest smile on your face because you're so stoked about it. I know you wouldn't have been, heartbroken if things didn't work out because you always find a through line with any of these situations. But I know I'm gonna have a million questions about your first day and everything like that too once you get going there.
yeah,
So I'm excited.
yeah. Appreciate that, and I'm pumped to go through it, and I'm just so glad it went well.
So logistically
Uh,
now, you're obviously gonna have to have some tough conversations with your current gig. You do have any idea on you're gonna put a 2 week in? Where's your office in comparison to where you have to go to Schneider? What is kind of going to change about your life and your transition out of your current job into your new one?
yeah, so I start April 30th, so in like 2 weeks,
Damn.
and basically what I'm thinking is I'm gonna wait to have the conversation until like the Monday of of the week before, because basically they're just gonna ask me to like walk out. Well, they'll probably have me transition accounts that day, and then they'll have me walk out. But I have a couple guys that I want to secure on some of my accounts, just because they're guys I'm close with, and I think they've helped me out a lot. So I just want to make sure that they get those accounts. And I have to work in Green Bay for the draft, um, at Steph's,
The
yeah, at
restaurant.
Steph's family's restaurant. So I just want to make sure that I can go there, and then those guys will be on those accounts when I'm gone, so that they can get them. So that's kind of where that's at. And then I I'm gonna message a lot of people, and like I'm gonna try to set a lot of people up right on some of the accounts that I've started to do well on, and like that I'm close to closing, and just make sure that can make that still happen for people. Um, but then I'm gonna talk to my direct sales manager the morning of, and then I'm sure I'll have to talk to the director and the VP, because the VP is going to want feedback from me too, because I have a relationship with all of them. And I know they've wanted me to stay and like for me to do well. They see a lot of potential in me. Um, well, some of them do at least. But so I'm sure I'll have to do that. And yeah, that's kind of for like Schneider wise, but they're not going to walk me like right out the door. They'll make me transition everything first, and then when it comes to logistically, like Schneider's 5 minutes from my house walking, which is so amazing. This is going to be 19-minute walk, 13-minute train ride. But Salesforce
Mm.
has the dopest location in the whole city. They are like the river goes like this. So here's the lake. It comes up, and here's perpendicular with the lake. So they meet right at the corner, and then there's another river that goes off this way. They're on the corner of the whole.
Damn, dude, this is
Yeah.
nuts.
So
I'm just looking at a photo.
it's gonna be sick.
That's so cool.
But yeah, so that'll be the new spot, and I'm gonna love actually walking that far, because one, it's walking past like my favorite area by the river, and then two, such a sick location.
I was gonna say you're probably gonna improve that, or you're gonna be happy that the walk is longer than your current walk because now you
Yeah,
can take it all in a bit more.
exactly. It will suck like in the
Now it's starting
winter.
to get
Yeah.
nice out.
Summer it's gonna be dope. And then walking home, I'll probably tell Steph like to come meet me a lot of days, and we'll walk home together. Maybe stop at the river walk, get drinks. Plus, my favorite part of the whole city is down below at up there. So like if you're ever in Chicago, if you go right under their building, they have these bleachers that you can look down both ways on the river. And tourists don't really go over there. There's typically maybe like one or two people that are sitting over there, but it's always quiet and relaxing. And you know where we saw that guy playing music?
I was just
That's
gonna say, is that what you're
yeah, it's
talking
right
about?
across the river from that. So you can look at that part, like that's a cool area. But yeah, you can watch like boats coming in and out. You can watch the trains coming over. Like there's so many cool things, and it's the best spot in Chicago to sit. So, like I spent a lot of time there just um like visualizing myself getting the interview and what I would do in the interview and just making that walk to prepare myself. So
I love it, dude. I can't say congrats enough. I'm fucking stoked for you. I'm super excited for the transition. I'm excited to hear about everything new with it. Well deserved.
yeah, a lot better pay too.
I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, no negotiation? You're pretty happy with the offer that they
The way
gave?
that sales works, like they don't let you really negotiate it. I,
You have a base and make commission,
yeah,
same as
yeah,
Strider.
yeah. But like that for the role I'm doing, it's based on like these metrics that they have put in place. As long as I hit those metrics, my pay goes up a lot. And then on top of that, if deals start to close, then I can get commission on those too. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Y'all moving to the penthouse in
Dude,
Chicago.
I wouldn't say that yet, but if I get that, when they put me in the next role of like account executive where you're closing deals and you're making money off those, that's where the real money's at. That's where you're making fat commissions. And they're telling me like, oh, it's gonna take X amount of months. Like on a really good track, it's 13 months. I'm like, fuck that. We're gonna figure out how to get there way closer than that because I I'm gonna do this job and do it well and like try to just go as crazy as possible. But I'm gonna figure out how to get that role quicker, and I'm gonna definitely be on my sales manager. Like, how do I get there? What do I need to do? Just teach me what I need to do, and I'll get to that role. So
I was gonna say, with the resources that you've gotten at Schneider and everything that you've done to learn what you have and grow as you have, I gotta imagine that Salesforce has that times 10 and people are gonna listen to what you want and plug you in where you want to be plugged in if you're doing the right things.
yeah,
So
exactly. And like, there's no hiding at Salesforce too. Like, they track everything. They're a tech company. Like, and the whole
yeah,
point of like Agent Force and Tableau, which are things that they do, is track metrics and make sure you're performing, and they can basically tell you what you're going to get based on what your performance is to start. And knowing myself, I don't, I, I love competition, if you didn't know.
yeah,
And I have something to prove to myself. So I'm ready to just go crazy when I get there.
yeah. I love it, bro. Yeah, it's kind of firing me up. I I'm ready for a transition as well, so I'm hoping that we both have stuff to kind of document as we continue to progress. Well, I know we will,
Yeah.
but I'm looking forward to coming on here with equally exciting news about something that I have going on.
Yeah.
So thanks for lighting that fire.
Of course, man. I mean, that's why I'm glad we're doing these conversations. That's the point is make sure we're holding each other accountable and keep moving forward. I know we did talk about too, diving into some of that for you as well, and then also last time we talked about the logo. We are almost at like an hour right now. Um, is
Yeah.
that something you wanted to jump in a little bit on, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to necessarily jump in on the process. Obviously, anyone who's watching this can see that there is a logo associated. We have it
Yeah.
for the um thumbnail. I did some thumbnails for this video and the first one that we posted. And right now it's just formula in plain text, so it's nothing too extravagant, and I think it's going to continue to grow as I get more time to dump into it. But it's all part of the process, and part of the process that I'm really excited about, honestly, because I think I mentioned this on the last call, but the packaging of everything I always think is just so exciting for me. And just even since we started this, I've been working with some people like on the thumbnails, for example, and just asking questions about how to formalize this thing a little bit better, formalize, but how to formalize this a little bit better, just to have thumbnails that look good, edit the podcast so it looks a little bit higher quality, have a logo that we're proud of. Eventually, we're gonna have to get in social media stuff. Right now, what I'm working on, and I know I'm kind of like shying away from the logo. I don't have a ton to say about that yet, but I will. I'm working on the intro. Like, we're gonna have a little intro, hopefully on this one that we upload. Did you get a chance to listen to that audio snippet that I sent you?
Listen to the first like 30 seconds of it. I was basically walking out the door for the interview, so
So you didn't get to the end part?
no, I did not yet. I'll have to listen to
You
it.
got to listen to it when we hop off the call. It'll get chopped down, but I had my boy Mario cook up a little beat for it,
Nice.
and he pulled the vocal from it's a Dr. Dre song. So we're gonna have to tread lightly. Like, he messed with the audio a little bit. I don't think it's gonna be copyright. There's gonna be a copyright
Yeah.
issue. That's gonna grow over time as well, but just something to put behind some sort of animation so that when this starts, it doesn't just open up with our faces. There's like something that shows
Yeah.
before you just see us talking. But all that stuff is going to continue to grow. It's part of the process that I get excited about. And I mean, we can have our conversations on here too, on your feedback on that stuff too. But that's going to continue to grow and evolve.
Perfect. Well, I'm excited to listen to it, and to go through it with you. So
Yeah, it's dope. It's kind of long right now, so there's like a beat for 30 probably seconds, but then the last 5 seconds is like a snippet from Dr. Dre, and he says like something 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 the formula, and it will go right into us speaking. But I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, I know we're coming up on an hour. But this is great. I'm excited for you. I'm glad that we can borderline have an episode dedicating to talk about this. Like, I don't know how you held up from saying you got the job for the first 40 minutes of it, but that build up was well
yeah,
worth it. Um,
had to.
Anything else you want to add?
I think yeah, we should one just next time kind of talk about those things that we mentioned, whether it's the logo. I can listen to the song and just go from there, kind of give feedback on that, and then talk about to your experience now with transitioning out of your role and what that's been like. I know it's this last week was an interesting one for you, so um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I got to take Steph out to dinner actually right now too. So we're gonna go to Ramen San. I didn't bring you there, did I?
No, you sent me that. I sent a list to my buddy John, when him and his lady went out to Chicago. I sent them a long list, a lot of things that I stole from you and
Yeah.
stuff, but we never went there when I
Well,
was
that's
there.
where we'll go next time. That's where we went after our first day moving here, and like it's our favorite spot. So I got sake in the fridge already. You feel me? So we're
Hell yeah, you got something to celebrate,
yeah,
brother.
exactly. So
Just before we jump, one last thing. Is there anything else that we need to do or prep before our last call or our next call? Like, we have the accounts created and things, anything like logistical that we want to try to come with before the next episode? I don't think there
no, I
really is,
think
right? Like, we just have to plan a date
yeah.
and maybe we can text about specific topics if
Yeah, I
needed.
think we should I mean, we'll just decide topics for this next one. I know we kind of highlighted a couple, and I think that's actually like those will take a good amount of the time, and then we'll get together and talk about just creating an intro now that I can actually focus on things outside of
Yeah.
what I was focused on. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to
Fun.
it.
All right, brother. Well, episode 3, we did it.
But all right, I'll talk to you soon.
All right, talk soon.
Knowledge and the talent that my mother had born to her equals a what is it, Trent?
Yo, man, that's the formula.